I will start with a few stories. First of all, I'd like to take you on a trip to a place that is not a good place to be in. Imagine the middle of the North Sea. It's cold, it's windy, it's cold, very windy, and sometimes it is not raining. It's not a good place to be, a few hundred kilometers from the east coast of Scotland. Why would you like to be there? Because there's something interesting over there. Apparently, deep under the bottom of the sea, there is something precious, oil and gas reservoir. If we drill a hole, what would happen? Nothing. Nothing will happen. Because you have many meters of water, very heavy water, putting a lot of pressure. Nothing's happened really. So if you are interested in the oil over there, you need to drill 2 wells, actually. You need to inject something, most likely water, into one of the wells in order to get oil from the other well. To do that, you need a pump, like that. How do you build a pump? Well, it's pretty simple, I believe. You need to understand what exactly is needed. So what are the parameters of the sea? What are the parameters of the pump? How big pressure you need? What to do with water? Because I believe too much salt inside oil may end up with a sort of contamination. When you have this all analyzed, most likely to create a design. Blueprints, you need to create pump design. When you go to the steelworks, pretty simple stuff. They build it. They cast the pump. They build it all together. You need to check if it all works, fits together. When this is done, you literally ship it, literally with a ship or a helicopter maybe, into the middle of the sea and install, and that's it. Does it look familiar? Does it look familiar? Well, apparently the process described over here might be similar to what we know from software, for instance, and we refer to it as a waterfall. So this is a story of the project that really happened. And at the end of the project, the pump over here was launched. It worked for half an hour and collapsed completely. A rumor was that the vice president who was in charge of the program said that the pump was good, but the sea was wrong. I mean, it was optimized to water that had different parameters. It is as if I tell you the application we produced was right, but the market was wrong, simply. You people, you don't know how good our application is. So decision was made to create a pump using Scrum, using the Scrum framework. How would you do it? Casting in a steelworks, couple of weeks, half a year long sprints maybe? Good idea? No? A few years ago, when I started my journey with the oil and gas industry, that was one of discussions we had, and that was not a long conversation, because what Scrum is for, Zion has just told you, not for deliver. It's not a framework that helps us deliver. It is a framework that helps us solve complex problems, and there's nothing complex here to cast a pump in steelworks. What is really complex, what is really difficult in here, is actually to analyze what exactly is required and to design it. So we launched a Scrum team, a Scrum project actually, and the product that we created was actually information, idea, design. Something that would be absolute rubbish if in IT, because in IT everything over here is complex. What was complex in the oil and gas proper, as they call it, proper engineering, was actually to find out what we need. All the rest was pretty simple. That was just one story. Now let's focus on something different. I told you at the beginning, it's the song of fire and ice, what happens in the middle of the North Sea. It's very difficult what happens over there. So we have a few Scrum teams operating not offshore on a rig or a ship, but onshore in office simply. That makes life of people over there easier. One of the teams was a Scrum team, and this is the top of the backlog, product backlog that they had. First of all, we need to acquire new helmets. It's it's something complicated really because we have thousands of employees. They're new helmets, but old budgets, right? We need to understand the parameters, requirements, and so on. Perhaps we need to interview those who work on a rig to find out what the correct helmets are. So it sounded like a good idea for a Scrum team. What else? Well, there is an emergency procedure of that particular name over here. It needs to be updated because of our new standards. New government policies, as simple as that. Third item, a rig, windy, cold, icy. If there's too much equipment on the floor, people tend to trip, fall down, and it's quite dangerous in these weather conditions. We need to identify and remove redundant equipment on deck 5.2 on a certain rig. What's the product? What do we produce here? I heard safety. Is safety a product? Can I touch it? Can I release it, maybe? Not really. However, you're absolutely right. From very old times, we have a product backlog, product owner in the Scrum framework. However, if you look at the current definition of the framework, there's nothing about product. It's a framework that helps organizations solve problems. And the problem over here, I do agree with you, is safety. Very old picture that many of us needed to look at while working in the oil and gas industry was that actually we create products or services in order to deliver value, and value is what matters. Value actually solves needs or problems of our users or customers, and that needs to be recognized. The majority of what we did in the oil and gas industry was actually here. Not here because it was really, really hard to talk about product because nothing was produced. And third story I have before we move on, it's a story not of a Scrum team. However, when I entered that department, I thought this is awesome. It was a department of 120 people, engineers, a lot of them with PhD, providing their services to oil production platforms. We had a team of chemical engineers, for instance. We had a team of hydraulic engineers. We have a team of electricians, electrical engineering team. 12 teams. I have only 4 pictures over here for the sake of clarity. We could have a team of mechanical engineers. So single discipline teams providing their services to, let's say, 3 oil production platforms. When I entered the department, I thought, wow, such a nice opportunity to introduce Scrum. Why is it so? Well, because I believe it's so rare that a platform calls electricians and tells them, well, there is a broken pump over here. Maybe it is broken, but maybe it's not a job for them. Maybe it's a job for them and also these people. And maybe hydraulics, because it's a pump, there's fluids inside. So very often each of the teams needed to provide services to all their platforms, and there are many dependencies among the teams. So I thought, what a wonderful idea to create cross-functional teams, each team providing services to one customer, one oil production rig, and we will be done, right? Right. However, they said no, it won't work over here. We had it 20 years ago, it will not work at all. So instead of that, what we introduced was the Kanban method. The Kanban method that helped us optimize work on the level of each of the teams, each of the disciplines. After only a few weeks of proper Kanban implementation, we found out very, very fast there are so many dependencies, so many blockers. I remember a team of 5 people with work in progress limit of 30. Out of that, 30 items were blocked. They focused, they unblocked. Very, very fast we invested into second flight level. I talked about it a little bit during the Dojo workshop yesterday. So eventually after a journey of 8, maybe 9 months, we ended up with a pretty nice system of Kanban systems at two levels, with a lot of extra practices like causal loop diagram, systems thinking, OKR, and so on. So many, many different methods. I asked after 9 months the head of the department, very powerful manager, I would say, have you noticed any difference? And his answer was, no, I haven't. But my wife did. I thought it was a very interesting comment. Could you please elaborate a bit? Well, my wife told the other day I'm calmer and I don't take so much work to home. That was pretty powerful feedback from that manager, actually. He could focus, finally, not on fixing dependencies, because that's typically escalation to his level of power, but on reinventing the team, looking at the future of the department, where you see it in a couple of years. And it was his idea after these 9 months, maybe to create multidisciplinary teams, because that would solve a lot of problems. So eventually ended up with still Kanban teams, however multidisciplinary in a construct similar to what was originally proposed by coaches. You might wonder, why at all we focus on agile ways of working in the oil and gas environment? Very often I hear agile in finance, agile in banks, agile in insurance, whatever. It's typically agile in IT department of these industries, at least at the beginning. In here we had no IT department. Believe me, when the pandemic started, there were big cars going from the office to houses of people bringing their desktop computers. There were no laptops these days, although it was pretty not so far time ago. Well, the answer is over here. Like with banks, like with other industry, the sense of urgency appeared a few years ago. The crude oil Brent the price went from above 100 to lowest, I think, around $17 per barrel. So there was a sense of urgency. We needed to change. We needed to cut costs. Of course, to produce gas and oil nowadays, it's not so cool, right? We are green, everybody. It's about ecology as well. So there was also an agenda to change, transform using digital solutions, first of all, and not to produce too much carbon dioxide as a byproduct of what we created. The oil and gas industry is pretty old, so they started dozens of years ago. So it's not that they never transformed, they did on their journey. What you would, as an Agile coach, for instance, or Scrum Master, what you would see in such an environment is actually there are two words, two approaches. One is interventions, embedded in CI, continuous improvement, in lean methods, lean manufacturing, lean management methods. We had lean coaches, for instance, providing these kind of services. We're going to run a Kaizen event for you, or we're going to run a value stream mapping, or any other focused kind of workshop to help a team, part of organization, solve a problem. And there was more agile bit, we're going to help you change in general. Can these two words work together? Yes, they can. It's one of the big lessons from the oil and gas industry. Originally, I thought if you have many coaches from multiple companies operating in one organization, that's a recipe for a failure, right? It's like too many people trying to solve the same problem. Over here, actually, we use the effect of synergy. So agile and lean methods together is actually what really helped us all. If you are interested, because they are still hiring in the UK for agile continuation of agile changes in the oil and gas industry, most likely you would like to know what are the pros of being there. First of all, it's blank canvas. Imagine yourself as a Scrum Master, let's say. You enter to a company, you tell them what Scrum is, and what they say, okay, let's do it. No biases. No need to unlearn not proper way of doing Scrum and learn again how to do it. Blank canvas. Very smart people, a lot of people with PhD, so it's not that they had immediate buy-in into agile ways of working. You need to explain them, but when you explain the pros, the way how you're going to do it, it's awesome. It works. And another one, visual management. If you enter the office, especially before the pandemic, of any company in the oil and gas industry, plenty of charts, plenty of tables, and so on. No Jira, no Azure DevOps. Everything actually was on the wall. We had two offices pretty far away, west coast and east coast of Scotland, and one big Scrum team, and they shared a board. They refused to use Jira. Instead of that, they invested in one big TV set, and in one office there was a TV set, in another was a camera. Non-stop 24 hours a day, broadcasting the board, sprint backlog. feasible, apparently. Third of all, it's very rewarding from the moment you introduce a method to the first results, very bluntly, very easily measured, saving, cutting costs, or increase of production, or increase of safety of people, 3 major metrics during the transformation. From the moment you start as a coach till the moment you see, or teams see, tangible results, few weeks, I would say up to 3 months. Very rewarding, and everybody says it makes sense. However, it wouldn't be possible without a few conditions, and I'd like to name some of them. First of all, we very often say leaders are needed. We need leaders to tell the organization, go into Agile way. I partially agree. I think leadership as a change agent that catalyzes the change is important. However, what is more important is a proper sponsorship. A leader that not only says go Agile, but says go Agile, I'm gonna pay for it. And actually, I want you to go for this training. It's a little bit more of an act of leadership only. We've seen it a couple of times, quite important thing. Even if you start to introduce a Kanban in a team, in Kanban University at least, we start with a workshop called Static, Systems Thinking Approach to Introducing Kanban, Static. There was always a sponsor of it, saying, your team will go for these 8 hours to do it. I'm gonna pay for your presence over here, so I'm paying for you not working on proper engineering. This is how it works. Sponsorship, pretty important enabler. Blended methods. If you are a coach that comes and says, oh, I have Kanban for you, I have Scrum for you, would fail dramatically. Very often we blended the methods, so it was Scrum and Kanban. Popular way, upstream Kanban for a product owner and Scrum for the rest of the team. Goal setting with OKR, systems thinking, many others. When I started with one of my assignments that took a little bit more than 3 years, initially maybe 80% of implementation was Scrum. After a year, Scrum 40%, Kanban 60%. When I was finishing, Scrum 30%, Kanban 50%, the rest something else. It was very natural, very dynamic. People from a Scrum team entering Kanban team, and absolutely okay, because we were on the same page with principles. We were on the same page with values. Very important topic. Finally, building capability. From day one, these companies invest a lot in building their internal capability, not to rely on Scrum Master or coaches later. So a few engineers that spent half of a year working on a rig, for instance, now learned Scrum or Kanban to help their team and make coaches redundant, which is ultimately the goal of that profession, I believe. And that's it. If you have more questions, I'm happy to answer, but I wonder what's the bottom line, right? What's the gift I have for you? I'm thinking of that, and my message would be, if we come back to the roots, to principles, to what is behind Scrum, why Kanban was created, why we have lean management at all. If we come back to the principles, to the roots, you will find out it's so easy to implement Agile ways of working in unusual industries, in unusual contexts, everywhere where it fits. And I'm happy to answer your questions.
So the first question is pretty challenging. How do you buy helmets in Scrum? How is it a complex problem?
Well, I think partially I explained there's a lot of nuances over here. It's a bulk payment. I didn't tell you, however, who was in the team, in the Scrum team, what were the professions. Process engineer, whatever they're doing. Economist, trying to validate the decisions, whether they are sensible or not. Other engineers, people who used to work on a rig. It's nothing difficult, I guess, in buying a helmet. It's very difficult if you want to buy thousands of helmets that fit needs of all engineers on all platforms, not only in the North Sea, but also area of Alaska, Gulf of Mexico, and so on. A lot of factors that you need to include. I think it's not complex, but definitely difficult.
Another question, did you finally did the pump with your team and it works?
I'm not sure if I can talk about it. Let's say yes, but on the way the team learned a lot. Learned a lot, including what's feasible at all, what is not feasible at all.
So another question is, you already mentioned it a little bit, but how did you manage to convince the decision maker to change so drastically? And maybe I will combine it with another question. So does that changes that you describe here was more in a Kaizen or Kaikaku way when we are speaking?
I think both, but I will start with the first question. We start with a pilot project, so there's what separate floor in the office where separate pilot Scrum initially teams were created. All of them, but I think all of them were successful at some point of time. These people were, originally they didn't want to go, they didn't want to lose their day job and join a Scrum team for half a year. After half a year they didn't want to come back to their day job, eventually they had to, but they were like seeds, change agents in the organization, showing other part of the organization how good looks like, and that's how we achieve the snowball effect simply. And then was it a Kaizen or a longer change, whatever? It was so context specific. What was natural, at least to the region that we supported as Meyrick, what was natural was that there was no what-fit-all method. If you needed Scrum, Scrum was for you. If you preferred Kanban, Kanban was better. If you needed something else, something else. I know that other companies in the same industry, because I work with 2 or 3 of them, they prefer big bang approach, one fit all, and they not necessarily always achieve success.
Thank you very much, Paweł. Thank you very much for your questions.